I was cast out by my family for my golden sister's success. Now she's back, desperate and begging for my help. I was cast aside by my family, all because my golden sister had the spotlight, and now, she's turning to me for help as their precious family business crumbles. Hi, Reddit. I'm Emily, 32, and I never thought I'd be pouring my soul out to strangers on the internet, yet here I am. Life has taken a turn I could never have foreseen. My parents kicked me out of their lives, and why? Because I managed to fund my MBA without relying on their so-called support. My sister, Olivia, 36, the golden child, couldn't handle it. It's a long, winding story, but I need to get this off my chest. Maybe some of you can offer advice, or just lend me a virtual ear to cry to. Let me paint you a picture of my family. I was always the underdog, the forgotten one, the odd puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. From the start, it was clear Olivia was the star of the show in our suburban Chicago neighborhood. If she brought home an A, my parents acted like it was Christmas morning. Me? I'd get a shrug and maybe a "that's nice, honey." You get the vibe. Olivia thrived effortlessly, it seemed. She was charming, confident, and undeniably talented. Lead role in the school play? That was her. Team captain in sports? Of course. Straight A's? Naturally. Meanwhile, I was the awkward, quiet kid holed up in my room tinkering with code. I never craved the spotlight. Olivia basked in it. When she got into an elite business school, my parents were over the moon. They covered everything for her: tuition, a posh apartment, designer outfits, even her spring break trips to Cancun. They couldn't stop bragging about their golden daughter. As for me, I kept my head down and figured I'd have to make it on my own. I took out loans, juggled part-time jobs, and graduated college with honors in computer science. But instead of throwing me a party, my mom said, "That's great, dear. Did you see Olivia's graduation photos? Wasn't she stunning?" Fast forward to today, I've been working as a project manager for a tech company. It's a solid job that pays the bills, but I want more. I dream of starting my own business, climbing the corporate ladder, or even breaking into senior management. That's why I decided to pursue an MBA at a top university. But there's a catch: tuition is astronomical. 6 figures, to be exact. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents might help. After all, they fully funded Olivia's education. So, one night after a family dinner that was predictably centered on Olivia's latest triumph at the family restaurant, I mustered the courage to bring it up. I explained my plan, shared how this degree could propel my career, and cautiously mentioned the cost. Their reaction? You'd think I'd asked them to give up their life savings. They flat out refused, which stung, but I could accept it. MBAs are expensive. What really got to me was their refusal to even co-sign a loan. I wasn't asking for a handout, I just needed a little support to avoid drowning in debt. Their excuse? We already paid for Olivia's education. Now it's time to focus on our future. It was like a punch to the gut. They were pouring their money into expanding the family restaurant, but they couldn't even co-sign a loan for me? Trying to stay calm, I asked, "So, you could afford to pay for Olivia's entire education, but you can't even help me get a loan?" My mom's response hit harder than I expected. "Well, honey, Olivia's education was an investment in the family business. An MBA is just for you, isn't it?" Just for me? As if I weren't part of the family. As if my success didn't matter. It felt like they were putting every obstacle in my path. But I wasn't about to give up on my dream. I swallowed my pride and turned to the only person I thought might understand, my Aunt Margaret. Now, Aunt Margaret, my dad's older sister, is a completely different breed from my parents. She's a successful neurosurgeon, down-to-earth, and genuinely kind. My parents have always had this weird tension with her, especially my dad, who seemed to resent her achievements. I remember overhearing heated arguments where he accused her of being arrogant and trying to outshine him. Still, Aunt Margaret had always been good to me. I wasn't eager to involve her, but I was desperate. One day, I gave her a call and laid everything out: my parents' refusal to help, the importance of this MBA, and how much it meant to me. Without a second's hesitation, Aunt Margaret said, "Of course, Emily. I've got your back." "Of course I'll help," Aunt Margaret said, her voice calm and confident. "Why didn't you come to me sooner? I'd be honored to invest in your future. I've always known you have incredible potential." Her words filled me with gratitude, but at the same time, I couldn't shake my fear. What if my dad found out? He'd lose his mind knowing I went to his sister for financial help behind his back. I begged Aunt Margaret to keep it between us, and understanding the complicated web of family drama, she agreed. For a while, everything seemed to fall into place. My tuition was covered, and I was gearing up to start my MBA program. I felt a mix of nervous excitement and hope for the future, like, for once, things might actually go my way. But of course, Olivia had to ruin it all. Even now, I'm not entirely sure how she found out I'd gone to Aunt Margaret. Maybe she'd snooped through my emails, or overheard a phone call. Either way, she knew, and being the golden child she always was, she couldn't just let it slide. She had to blow it up into some dramatic fiasco. I came home one evening after a long day at work, eager to share some updates about my upcoming MBA orientation. But the second I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The house was unnervingly quiet, the air heavy with tension. My stomach dropped. As I walked into the living room, I saw why. Everything I owned, my books, my clothes, even my bedding, was packed into boxes, stacked neatly as if the house were erasing me. My parents sat on the couch, their faces a storm of anger and disappointment. And there was Olivia, standing smugly to the side with this look of triumph plastered across her face. It felt like I'd walked into some twisted intervention. My dad didn't waste a second. "Explain this," he barked, shoving a stack of papers into my hands. Confused, I grabbed the papers, my hands trembling as I skimmed through them. My heart stopped. Olivia had completely lost her mind. She'd forged emails between Aunt Margaret and me, making it look like I'd betrayed the family. The fake emails claimed I'd leaked the family restaurant's trade secrets, recipes, supplier contacts, even financial records in exchange for Aunt Margaret paying my tuition. The thing is, I didn't even have access to most of that information, but Olivia did. My mind reeled as I realized what she'd done. She'd gone through my laptop, found my real emails with Aunt Margaret, and doctored them using Photoshop or something similar. She'd painted me as some kind of traitor. "This isn't real," I stammered, barely able to get the words out. "These emails are fake. I'd never do this." But my parents wouldn't listen. My mom stood there sobbing, while my dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. "We trusted you," he spat. "And you stabbed us in the back." No matter how much I pleaded, they wouldn't believe me. They trusted Olivia completely, of course they did. She'd always been the perfect one in their eyes. It didn't matter that I'd spent years working hard, staying out of trouble, and trying to be a good daughter. None of it mattered. In their minds, I was guilty. "You have to leave," my dad said coldly. "We won't have a traitor in this house." I begged them to reconsider, tried to explain that Aunt Margaret was only helping me the same way they'd helped Olivia. But they wouldn't hear it. They said I was a disgrace to the family. Olivia stood there silently the whole time, her smug expression never faltering. Her eyes practically screamed, "I've won." She'd finally gotten rid of me, the sister she'd always seen as competition. And that was it. I loaded my car with a few boxes of my belongings and the clothes on my back, feeling utterly betrayed, humiliated, and alone. As I stepped outside, I noticed neighbors peeking through their curtains, watching the spectacle unfold. Their curious stares only added to my shame. Once I was in the car, I broke down completely. I could barely speak through my sobs as I called Aunt Margaret. She didn't ask a single question, just told me to come to her place immediately. I don't know how I would have survived without her. Right now, I'm living at Aunt Margaret's place. She's been a lifeline, offering me a roof over my head and reassuring me that she's still committed to helping with my MBA. Her support means everything, but I can't seem to shake that night from my mind. The memory is burned into me, Olivia's smug face, my parents' accusing glares, and the sight of my life packed into boxes as though I'd never belonged there in the first place. I don't know what to do, honestly. Part of me wants to fight back, to prove Olivia lied and clear my name. If I dug hard enough, I'm sure I could find evidence that those emails were fake. But another part of me wonders why I should even bother. What's the point of defending myself to people so ready to believe the worst about me? How do you come to terms with a betrayal like this? In a few weeks, my MBA program begins. I should be over the moon, but instead, I'm drowning in emotional chaos. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering if I missed the signs. Was Olivia always this calculating? Were my parents always so quick to cast me aside? And after this, how can I ever trust anyone again? Aunt Margaret keeps telling me to focus on what's ahead, the opportunities this MBA will open up for me. She says the best revenge is success. She's probably right, but right now, the anger and hurt make it hard to see that far ahead. So, here I am, Reddit, looking for advice. How do I rebuild my life from here? How do I process the fact that my own sister would go to such lengths to ruin me? And how do I face the world, my MBA classmates, my professors, when I feel so broken inside? I'm grasping for a lifeline here. If you've got one, I'm all ears. It's been 3 years since I first shared my story, and wow, has a lot changed. Back then, I was an emotional wreck, reeling from being thrown out by my family. Now, I've come so far, and I wanted to give you all an update. I poured myself into my MBA program, channeling all that pain and anger into my studies. It wasn't easy, those first few months were brutal, but I graduated at the top of my class. That was a defining moment for me. The girl who once felt small and overshadowed was gone, replaced by someone confident, capable, and unafraid to take up space. After graduation, I landed a position with a top-tier consulting firm. The job is demanding, but I genuinely love it. For the first time, I'm in an environment where my hard work and skills are recognized and appreciated. No more living in anyone's shadow. Through all of this, Aunt Margaret has been my rock. She's become more than just family, she's the supportive parent I never had. Every week, we catch up over dinner, swapping stories about her fascinating cases as a neurosurgeon and my latest projects at work. She's taught me so much about valuing myself and standing my ground. As for my parents and Olivia? Silence. Not a single call, text, or email in 3 years. It was hard at first. I spent a lot of nights crying, missing them despite everything. But over time, I realized their absence was a blessing in disguise. Without them, I've been able to grow into someone I'm truly proud of, free from comparisons and constant judgment. But life, as it turns out, loves throwing curveballs. Just last Saturday, when I thought I'd put all of this behind me, Olivia showed up at my door. At first, I barely recognized her. The polished, high-end mighty aura was gone. She looked worn down, her clothes simple and a bit shabby, her hair tied back in a messy bun, and dark circles under her eyes. "Hey," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" I wanted to slam the door in her face, but curiosity got the better of me. I let her in, and she perched nervously on the edge of my couch, fidgeting like a schoolkid caught in trouble. "I need your help," she finally admitted. Then it all spilled out. The family restaurant was in shambles. The grand expansion my parents had banked on had been a disaster, leaving them drowning in debt. They'd overextended, taken on massive loans, and now bankruptcy loomed. "Dad's talking about filing for bankruptcy," she said, her voice breaking. "Mom's a wreck. I don't know what to do. I've tried, but I can't fix this." As she spoke, I felt a tangle of emotions. There was a dark satisfaction in knowing they were finally facing the consequences of their actions. But there was also something softer, a flicker of empathy, maybe. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my tone sharp. "What do you want from me?" Olivia's eyes pleaded with me. "You're doing so well with your MBA, your job. I was hoping, maybe you could help. Offer advice." Or, she didn't finish, but I knew what she meant. She wanted money. The irony wasn't lost on me, the golden child seeking rescue from the black sheep. It felt almost surreal, the kind of story you'd expect from a soap opera. I kept my tone calm as I addressed Sarah. Let me get this straight, I said, voice steady. After everything you did, after 3 years of silence, you show up now asking for help? She had the decency to look ashamed, her face flushed as she mumbled, I know I messed up. I was jealous, okay? You've always been so smart, so capable, and when I found out Aunt Margaret was helping you, I just lost it. I'm sorry. Sorry. That was it. After 3 years of devastation, she offered a single, insufficient word. Sorry doesn't cut it, Sarah, I said, staring at her. You have no idea what I've been through because of you. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I know, she said quietly. But we're still family, aren't we? Family helps each other. Family. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. After everything that had happened, did we still count as family? I told her I needed time to think, and she left her number before walking out. Her disappointment lingered in the air long after the door closed. Now here I am, wrestling with what to do. I've worked so hard to build this new life, free from the constant comparisons and toxic drama of my family. Do I really want to risk getting pulled back into that mess? But another part of me feels something, perhaps a flicker of compassion, when I think about my parents facing bankruptcy. And there's a small, almost vindictive part of me that sees this as a chance to show them what they lost when they pushed me away. To prove, once and for all, that I'm not the failure they believed me to be. Still, is it worth it? After everything they put me through, do I owe them anything? Even if I do help, would things actually change? Or would I always be the second best daughter, no matter what I do? I've been going back and forth on this for days, and I'm still no closer to a decision. On one hand, stepping in could provide an opportunity to rebuild some kind of relationship on my terms. But on the other hand, I've only just started healing. Do I really want to risk reopening old wounds? Aunt Margaret, as always, has been my sounding board. She's supportive, reminding me that it's my choice and she'll back me no matter what. But she also warned me, sometimes, helping others means sacrificing yourself. Make sure you're not setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. Her words have stuck with me. So has a comment from a coworker who noticed my distraction. Sometimes, the most professional thing you can do is keep your personal life out of your work. I know I could help. My MBA courses on crisis management and corporate turnarounds have given me the tools to create a strategy for their business. But should I? Am I responsible for fixing the mess they created? And Sarah, can I trust her apology? Is it genuine, or just another manipulation? Whatever I decide, one thing is certain, this time, it will be on my terms. I'm not that insecure, scared girl anymore. Whether or not my family ever sees it, I know my worth. Reddit, what would you do? Should I prioritize my own healing and let them deal with the consequences of their choices, or should I offer my help, knowing the risks? I'd really value an outside perspective on this. It's me again, Reddit. Things have taken an unexpected, dramatic turn, and I couldn't wait to share the latest development. Remember how I was debating whether to help my family with their restaurant crisis? Well, the universe had other plans. A week after Sarah's visit, my parents showed up at my workplace. Yes, you read that right. My workplace. Somehow, they figured out where I worked and came straight to the office. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I was deep in a meeting when my assistant buzzed me to say 2 people were in the lobby asking to see me. When she described them, my heart nearly stopped. I excused myself from the meeting, feeling like I was walking toward my own execution. When I stepped into the lobby, there they were, my parents, looking older and more worn down than I remembered. My father's confident, larger-than-life demeanor was gone, replaced by a tired, slumped posture. My mother's eyes were puffy, as though she'd been crying non-stop. The sight of them stirred a complicated mess of emotions in me: anger, sadness, and, yes, even a little sympathy. They looked up when I approached, and my father cleared his throat awkwardly. "We need to talk," he said. And now, Reddit, I'm here, still reeling from the encounter and trying to figure out what to do next. Dad's shoulders were slumped in a way I'd never seen before, and Mom's hair was completely gray. The weight of 3 years of silence pressed between us as we stood there, frozen, staring at one another. Finally, Dad spoke. "We need to talk," he said, his voice rough, almost small. I didn't want this conversation to happen at work. I suggested a coffee shop nearby, and we walked in strained silence. Once we sat down with our drinks, an awkward hush fell over the table. I wasn't going to make it easy for them. They'd sought me out, they could do the talking. Mom was the first to break the silence. "We were wrong," she said, her voice trembling. "We should never have pushed you away. We should have listened. We're so sorry." For 3 years, I had dreamed of hearing those words. I imagined how I'd feel vindicated, relieved, maybe even overjoyed. But in that moment, all I felt was nothing. A hollow emptiness. No anger, no satisfaction, no joy. Dad added, "You should come home. We can get through this as a family." I sipped my coffee to buy time. Finally, I asked, "Why now?" They exchanged a look, and it hit me that there was more to the story. As they began to explain, their desperation became painfully clear. The restaurant wasn't just struggling, it was on the verge of collapse. They'd overextended with expansions, and in their attempts to stay afloat, they'd cut corners, serious ones. Tax evasion, health code violations, shady dealings with suppliers. They weren't just facing bankruptcy, they were facing potential criminal charges. "We need your help," Dad said, his voice barely audible. "Your business skills, your connections, you could save us." I sat there stunned. The parents who had dismissed me as inadequate, the ones who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years, were now looking at me as their last hope. "Let me get this straight," I said, trying to keep my composure. "You threw me out, believed the worst of me with no proof, ignored me for years, and now you want me to bail you out of illegal activities?" Mom reached across the table, trying to grab my hand. I pulled back. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded. "We know we don't deserve your help," she said. "But we're still family. Please." That word again. Family. But as I looked at them, I realized something: they weren't my family anymore. Aunt Margaret, who had stood by me unconditionally, was my family. My friends from work in the MBA program, who celebrated my achievements, were my family. I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. "But I can't help you. What you're asking for isn't just money. You're asking me to sacrifice everything I've worked for, my career, my values. I can't do it." Their shocked expressions would have been almost funny if the situation weren't so sad. Dad's face darkened with anger. "After everything we've done for you." I cut him off. "What have you done for me? Denied me support for my education while paying for Sarah's? Threw me out based on lies? Always made me feel like I was second best?" Mom sobbed openly now. "Please, sweetie. We'll lose everything." For a moment, guilt flickered in my chest. But then I thought about the last 3 years, how I'd struggled, grown, and thrived on my own. I stood up. "I'm sorry you're in this situation, but these are the consequences of your actions. I can't save you." Dad's voice rose as I turned to leave. "We'll be ruined. Is that what you want?" I paused, turning back to face them. "What I want," I said, my voice steady, "is for you to take responsibility for your choices. I want you to understand what you lost when you pushed me away. But more than anything, I want to be free of your drama and manipulation." With that, I walked out of the coffee shop. As I stepped onto the street, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I'd stood up for myself and chosen my own well-being over their expectations. But the story didn't end there. The more I thought about that meeting, the more I realized that walking away wasn't enough. My parents' actions weren't just unethical, they were illegal. And if they continued unchecked, others could get hurt. So, I made a difficult decision. I reported their violations to the authorities, the IRS, the health department, and the police. It wasn't easy. The fallout was immediate. Sarah called, screaming and accusing me of destroying the family. My parents left voicemails oscillating between desperate pleas and empty legal threats. But I stood firm. Aunt Margaret was my rock through those difficult weeks, reminding me that I'd done the right thing. The authorities launched an investigation, and the restaurant was shut down pending a full audit. My parents and Sarah now face serious legal consequences. It's not a happy ending, but it's a just one. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. The toxic ties that once held me back have been severed. My career is flourishing. I've even been approached about a potential promotion. My coworkers, who supported me through all of this, have become like a second family. And Aunt Margaret? She and I are closer than ever. We're planning a trip together once the dust settles, a celebration of new beginnings. Do I still feel pangs of guilt? Sometimes. But when I think about the pain and manipulation I endured, I know I made the right choice. 3 years ago, I felt lost and broken after being cast out of my home. Now, I'm strong, independent, and free. If you're struggling with toxic family dynamics, remember this: you have the right to prioritize your well-being. You deserve to set boundaries. And sometimes, the family you build is more meaningful than the one you're born into. Here's to new beginnings and creating our own happiness.